be going over if this Stalogy notebook is for you and what kind of size you might want to get. And then finally, I'm going to go through what to expect after using the Stalogy for a couple of months, because as a Stalogy user myself, I'm at the stage where I'm about halfway through some of my notebooks, and I want to quickly address how these change over time, because obviously it's not going to be the same as when you get it new, fresh out of the package. So if you're new here, my name is Kaitlin, and I'm obsessed with Stalogy notebooks. I've been using these for about 9 months now, since last September of 2019, and they've been working so well for me. They are my notebook of choice. I do everything in these. I journal in these. I plan in these. I have reading notes in these, everything. I do almost everything in this notebook. So I'm going to quickly go over what a Stalogy is. If you've never heard of this notebook before, I would suggest you should check out my older video, which goes very in depth into pretty much everything about the Stalogy. It's a pretty hardcore review. Stalogy is a Japanese brand of stationery. They make a lot of things, but the main thing they're known for is the notebooks that you guys can see right here. These are called their Editor's Series notebooks, and a couple reasons why they're so noteworthy are the simple, minimal appearance, the thin pages, and the fact that each book can hold 368 pages, which is a lot of pages compared to your regular, let's say, Leuchtterm, which only has about 240, I believe. But let's say you're at the point where you know what a Stalogy is, but you're trying to decide, is it the right notebook for you to invest in? Now, I think there are 3 main things you need to consider. The first thing is price, the second thing is the pages and your paper preference, and then the third thing is your preference for a notebook exterior. So when it comes to the price of these notebooks, I personally, when I shop for notebooks, like to look at 2 things: the total price of the notebook as well as the price per page, because a notebook might be less expensive than another one of a different brand, but if it has half the amount of pages, then it might actually be less expensive to get the notebook that you previously thought was a lot more money. So let me break it down. I'm going to be comparing the prices of a A5 Stalogy notebook, a Leuchtterm 1917 A5 dotted notebook, and an Archer and Olive A5 dotted notebook, because all of these notebooks are the most similar in size and most similar in the size of paper that you'd be getting, which makes price comparison a little bit easier. So if we look at the Stalogy, the price in US dollars in order to buy one of these A5 notebooks is about $24 US. If you want to buy a Leuchtterm, it's going to be $19 US, and coming in at the highest price, not surprisingly, it's going to be $36 US to purchase a Archer and Olive notebook. What I find interesting is when you break this down into the cost per page for each of these notebooks, you are looking at 0.07 cents per page in a Stalogy, 0.08 cents per page in a Leuchtterm, and 2 cents per page in an Archer and Olive notebook. So even though the Stalogy is $5 more than the Leuchtterm notebook, you're looking at a very similar cost per page of each notebook, and that's pretty much because the Stalogy has more pages than the Leuchtterm. So to quickly summarize that, running up at the lowest end, the most inexpensive notebook for cost per page is actually the Stalogy. The second most inexpensive is the Leuchtterm. Very close though. I would say these are pretty much the same, since 0.07 and 0.08 is like a very small difference in money. With a much higher cost per page is the Archer and Olive. However, that is probably due to the thickness and paper quality of the pages. And because the paper is going to be a lot thicker, you're probably going to be paying more for it anyway, and should hopefully be expecting that. We've looked at price point. Now we need to look at the actual features of the notebook and if they match with what you're looking for. So let's break down the paper first. I'm going to be going over ghosting, paper color, and thickness between all 3 notebooks, so you can get hopefully a really well-rounded understanding of what the Stalogy brings to the table. So the first thing you need to know is the difference between bleeding and ghosting. Ghosting happens when you can see the pen on the other side of the paper, kind of like a shadow, or I guess a ghost. Bleeding is where when you write on one side of the paper, the ink actually seeps and transfers onto the other page. Here, let me show you an example. All right, here's a great one. So you can really see in this page here that although you don't have any bleeding, so pen going through the other side of the page. You can definitely see that there is writing on the opposite side of this page, so there's definitely going to be a lot of ghosting. And you know, whenever you have a notebook that has thin pages, you're generally going to get a lot of ghosting. That's just kind of what comes with the territory. However, I have found, as someone who uses mainly gel pens and some brush pens like the Tombow Fudenosuke, that I haven't had any issues with bleeding at all in these notebooks, which is a really big plus for me. Generally, any supplies that are paint-based, really inky markers, anything like that is going to be at a much higher risk of bleeding. So if you're looking to do a lot of artwork in this journal, just think about the kind of medium that you're using, and if it's anything besides like a artist's pen, you might want to consider getting a notebook that has thicker pages, because this will definitely be an issue when it comes to bleeding. The next thing I want to focus on is the actual color of the pages. I know personally that page color is really important to me. I like a nice white page, and if you can just tell based on my background here, which is a white Bristol board, fun fact, these pages in the Stalogy are very, very white. I'm gonna throw a comparison up here so you can see the difference between these pages, the Leuchtterm pages, and the Archer and Olive pages. I'm pretty sure the Archer and Olive pages are a bit more white than these. However, it's a pretty close comparison versus the Leuchtterm, which are very cream pages. And then I kind of talked about this when I was going over ghosting, but when it comes to page thickness, these pages are incredibly thin. Sometimes I've had situations where I've been erasing something on these pages and they'll kind of crinkle and fold if you're not careful. So that's the kind of thinness you're looking at. But you know, think about if you like thick pages or you like thin pages. Personally, I really like thin pages because I don't like my pages to feel really stiff and inflexible. But if you like a really thick page, then you might want to get something with a higher paper quality or GSM, because that is going to give you that really thick kind of scrapbooky feeling. The last thing to think about with these notebooks is going to be the cover. Now, when I say cover, I think of two main things. One, the durability of the cover, and two, what actually comes with the notebook on the cover. Do you have a pen loop? Do you have an elastic? Do you have a back pocket? All that good stuff. So with the Stalogy, you don't have any of that good stuff. You don't have a back pocket, there's no pen loop, and there's no elastic. And this is a soft cover notebook, so it's quite flexible. The great thing about these notebooks is you can insert them into a bunch of other covers. I love to do this with all of my notebooks, and that customizability is a feature that I really, really enjoy about these notebooks. Okay, so let's say you've decided that you want a Stalogy, but you're like, Kaitlin, how do I pick a size? Stalogy has 4 sizes of notebook: A6, B6, A5, and B5. And these sizes refer to the page sizes or the paper sizes of each notebook, which are all Japanese standard page sizes, not American standard page sizes, which I know is weird, but I figured that out the hard way. Bringing up the smallest of the notebooks is the A6 notebook. This guy is pretty little, but still very portable. Then you have the B6, which is a little bigger. Instead of 4x6, this guy's about 5x7. However, there's still lots of room to write, making it a good mid-sized notebook. Then you have the biggest one, which is the A5. Big one is the B5 size. The B5 is a big guy. I don't even have it because I just don't want a notebook that big, but that guy is even bigger than your standard A5 notebook. So the first thing to think about when you're deciding on a size is how much room you need. This is going to depend on a couple things. First, it's going to depend on your lifestyle. If you're in a job that maybe requires a lot of note-taking, you're a student maybe, you need a lot of room on the page, then you might need something bigger that you can write more per page. And then I would say one of the biggest things to consider is actually your writing size. If you have really big writing, you're going to be going through pages pretty quickly, so getting a bigger notebook might be a good idea. One thing to think about with these notebooks as well though is that the grid in these ones is 0.5, and I'll show you this, but the grid in these is actually 0.4. So you're actually going to be able to have bigger writing on this grid versus this grid. But I guess if your writing took up 2 of these squares, then you'd be able to actually write a little bigger on the A5. So just think about that as well. If you're still trying to figure out what size is kind of the best one for you, I'm just going to quickly show you what I use each size for in my own personal kind of organization system. So this little guy, the A6, I mainly use for reading journaling. I do have a video on this, but I find for my reading journal, I don't need super big pages because my note taking isn't that extensive, and I want something that's really portable and really really small. I also think this notebook would be really good as a travel journal because it would be really great on the go. Now, when it comes to the B6 notebook, this is actually my notebook of choice when it comes to planning and note-taking. My B6 notebook you see actually a lot, but you probably don't recognize it right now because it's not in its fancy cover. But this is my bullet journal, and I really love this size because it's a great middle ground when it comes to having a lot of writing space, but also being really portable. Now, the A5 notebook was a tricky one because originally I used it as a bullet journal and I found it way too big. But then I figured out that this notebook for me is perfect for journaling. I just put out a video on journaling as well, so amazing. You guys can actually see all 3 setups of these. But yeah, I actually love to use this to journal. When I'm journaling, I don't want my hand to be falling off the page. I just don't want to be thinking about that. I just want to be able to write my thoughts down and move on with my life. So for that, this notebook is amazing and the size is great. All right, so now I'm going to put these aside and talk to you a little bit about what kind of changes you can expect with this notebook as you use it and as you fill it up with all your amazing ideas, because I know you have them. So just a bit of background, I started this notebook in January of 2020. I have finished about half of it. I'm on page, I guess 174 out of 368. So I'm about halfway through this notebook. And here are a couple changes I have noticed in the notebook after about 5 months. So the first thing I noticed is that when you use the pages in the Stalogy, the page looks a little different. You can actually really clearly see where the notebook has not been used, which is these pages, and where it's been used, which is these pages. A lot of people refer to this as chunking. As you use the pages, they tend to separate a little bit and they don't sit as flat against each other as when they did when it was a new notebook, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. Finally, this is what the spine is looking like after 5 months of wear. I'm pretty impressed with how the spine's been wearing personally. There's been no breaking of any kind. This notebook hasn't fallen apart on me. I think it actually looks like it's in really good condition considering it's halfway through, and I've been very happy with how it's been working for me these past 5 months. I have no complaints. Now, the one thing I do wish I could change when it comes to this notebook is ink can transfer very easily in these notebooks. So do I wish the notebook pages were a little more absorbent so that it didn't have kind of gel ink residue going everywhere? Yes, but if your handwriting smudges, I know it kind of sucks at first, but it's really not the end of the world. At the end of the day, it's the words that matter, not the smudging. All right, and that is pretty much all I have to say when it comes to the Stalogy notebook. I hope that this gave you some more information about these notebooks. If you're trying to decide whether you want to buy one, you have more information at your fingertips so you can make that decision a little more confidently. And if you have any questions, let me know below. I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.